Mass media. Anything which transmits a message from person or group to another person or group is a medium. Any medium that transmits a message to a large group of people is a mass medium. Television, radio, films, advertisements, newspapers, magazines, video and the internet are all examples of mass media, though many more examples could be found and their number is growing all the time. The main aspects of the mass media that sociologists are concerned with are the question of who determines what messages the main media send, theories of content, and what effect, if any, these messages have on people's social behaviour and attitudes, theories of effect. Okay, so hopefully we all know what the mass media is. It surrounds us and is part of our lives every day. However, for a sociologist, what we are looking at is what's the message and what effect does it have? Does it change the way that people behave socially? Okay, so let's look at social patterns in listening, viewing and reading. In the developed world, the relative importance of different forms of the mass media changed rapidly in the course of the 20th century. In the earliest decades, radio, cinema and the printed media dominated. In the UK in 1947, for example, almost 90% of all households possessed a radio, at a time when television ownership was almost unknown. Listening to it remains the third most popular home-based leisure activity. Independent local radio stations are the most listened to, accounting for over 40% of all listeners and as many as 67% of listeners under 15. Okay. Now, traditionally, if you watch any sort of programs on TV that are talking about the war, you will see people sitting around the radio listening to announcements that came out. This was where it was announced that war had been declared. This was where it was announced that there were political machinations going on. And then during the war, newsreels, Pathé newsreels that were shown in cinemas so everybody could see what was going on. Again, nowadays we watch TV, we see news reports coming live from wherever a war is happening or an issue has erupted. But in those days, in war days and war times, people would watch TV and they would watch films in the cinema. So these were the, they wouldn't watch TV, they would listen to the radio. So these were the main forms of mass media. Still today, the third most popular mass media is radio, okay? And people will listen to it. It talks here about local radio, independent local radio stations being the most listened to. I find that frightfully annoying, actually, because I hate listening to independent radio stations and having to plough your way through the adverts. That's why I flick through so many stations and win different competitions on the radio, because I'm listening to something else all the time and flicking around. Okay, but there's another message that's coming through there. There will be certain adverts that will stick in your brain without you even realising it, and that's coming through because it's such an important part of the way that the radio gains its money. So, as Table 10.1 shows, there has been a rapid decline in the number of cinemas in the last 60 years, from a pre-war peak of almost 5,000 to just under 500 by the close of the century. Attendance, however, has fluctuated, with a low of 67 million admissions by 1987, though this figure began to rise again in the 1990s. Attendance is highest in the 15 to 24 age group, with adults over 35 being the lowest participating group. Okay, now I'm sure there are many factors for this, but you only have to look at cinemas here in Dubai during the weekends to see how many people are attending the cinema. Now why? Because we can also buy dodgy DVDs all over the place here. But it's to do with the social aspect of it. And then what is the message we're being given when we go to the cinema? The type of films that we watch. And the type of films that become extremely popular. What's the message that they're trying to give across to us? The proportion of people reading a national daily newspaper has fallen steadily since the 1980s, to only 53% of the population by the turn of the 21st century. The Sun remains the most popular newspaper in the UK, as well as the most widely read by all social classes, though its main readership is drawn from the manual working class. Okay, now these figures may not be completely accurate now. There is obviously a decline in the reading of newspapers, the actual physical newspaper, although most newspapers now in the UK can go online and you can buy them online. Some of them there is free stuff, and then you have to buy the rest of the stories if you want to see those things. Most often the things that you have to buy are the sports reports, because those are the things that people want to actually know about. But of course we can access those sports reports as well via the internet, so newspapers are losing out, and they have to have a different angle if they're actually going to appeal to people. There is the tradition of buying your daily newspaper. As you know, I love to read 7 Days every morning, okay? I don't necessarily read it for the factual content of it, but it does stimulate thought, and it will then give me other things that I think, I'm going to find out about that, okay, so that I know more about those things. So some people may want to read a newspaper still for those ideas, and it's interesting that it is the manual working class who are the ones who are still reading the Sun, okay, that they're the ones who have a chance during the day to sit down and look through the paper. None of the stories in the Sun are in depth, okay, so you read everything on a surface value, very bite-sized, and then you can move on. The problem with that, of course, is that people then have an opinion, which is based on what they've been told, the perspective they've been told in that newspaper. If they don't go away and look at anything else on it, that's the perspective they're going to hold. Does that then influence the way that they behave within society? Men are more likely than women to read a newspaper, but women are more likely than men to read a magazine. The 4 most popular periodicals are all television listing magazines. So the most popular magazines are also linked to a mass media. Watching television is the most popular home-based leisure activity and has been for several decades across all ages, classes and sexes. The average amount of time per week spent watching television is 26 hours, compared with 19 hours listening to the radio, with viewing hours increasing with age. The propensity to watch news and current affairs programs also increases with age, although drama, particularly soap operas, and light entertainment programs are the most popular with all ages. Okay, so people are watching the news on TV as opposed to reading a newspaper, because obviously a newspaper is sometimes 24 hours out of date. Okay, whereas on TV you can be watching it immediately and seeing the story unfold in front of your eyes. However, you don't get that kind of retrospective look at things that you maybe would get from a journalist in the newspaper. And so you can see that here we're being told that older people watch more of these news items, and that increases as you get older, wanting to watch these things and see these things. Average spent watching television in a week is 26 hours. Okay, now if you think about that, that's 3 to 4 hours a day. And actually I think a lot of people would think that maybe they watch more than that. And if we now put that into how many hours do you spend watching Vine videos or YouTube clips or whatever else, that would be an interesting analysis to have the comparison between the two. Okay, however, what people want is to be entertained. Okay, and Vine videos, for example, are a way of entertaining which is very quick, okay, and fits in with modern day society of wanting instant gratification and not having to hang around for too long. Okay, soap operas, 30 minutes of fantasy per day, again, fits completely with the way that people want to be entertained. Okay, 30-minute comedy shows. Watch it, laugh, move on, something else. Okay. As Table 10.3 shows, BBC One and ITV are the most popular stations, accounting for more than 50% of market share, although in recent years cable and satellite stations have increased their profile, and really this is very, very outdated, which is why I'm going to ask you to find some more recent data on this. because Sky TV and satellite TV in the UK provides so many more options for people. However, I have to say ITV and the BBC are very good with the programs that they produce, and this is why they've managed to sustain themselves even with all these other satellite TV channels that have come up. In the last 4 years of the last century, subscriptions to cable television increased by almost 100%, with satellite subscriptions increasing by 50% in the same period. Managerial, technical and skilled manual workers are the heaviest subscribers, along with the retired and unoccupied. Okay, so people who need some entertainment within their home. So retired and unoccupied, yes, you can understand that. Then we have our managerial, technical and skilled manual workers, right, who think that they don't just want to watch what is provided for them on regular TV, they want to use terrestrial TV. One, it is a status symbol, but two, it widens the sorts of things that they can actually watch and see every day. Ownership of a personal computer has increased from 13% of households in 1985 to over 40% in 2001, with professional workers being most likely to own one. I would suggest that figure is massively higher than that though. As figure 10.1 shows, there is a strong correlation between age and the use of the internet, with use declining with age and men being heavier users than women. The most frequently cited reason for not using the internet in 2001 was lack of interest by 42% of non-users, with lack of access to a PC second at 26%. Now again, that lack of access is, very unlikely now. However, for example, my mother would say she doesn't want to learn how to use the internet, and she's learned enough in her life, she doesn't want to learn anything else. My in-laws, on the other hand, have had lessons in how to send an email, which seems a very strange thing to have a lesson in to me, because it only takes you a couple of seconds to learn how to do it. However, they needed whole lessons to be able to get them to a point of knowing how to do these things. So for the older generation, maybe using technology is a difficult thing, and you've seen me struggle with various bits of technology. So you can see that as young people are growing up, and using computers is just an everyday aspect of life. The development of the computer and the things that it will use, and the way that mass media will be included in that is just going to keep on growing and growing. The transformation of the forms taken by the mass media in recent decades, and the potential of the digital revolution, which will allow televisions to become more like PCs and vice versa, have prompted two views for the future for the mass media and society, for the way people live and work and the way they use their leisure time. According to one view, sometimes called the digital liberation hypothesis, changes in media forms and use will be benign and permit a form of social liberation. Interactive media will increase online activities such as shopping, saving personal time and reducing pollution as home deliveries are made. More opportunities will exist to work and study from home. Television will become more interactive, and programs, for example films, will be available for viewing on demand. Surfing will become the characteristic viewing mode for both television and internet usage, with the tradition of following the plot of a television series being abandoned. The distinction between user, consumer and producer will break down as more people become empowered to create their own websites and use and transmit video technology. The vast increase in the sources and types of information will make forms of social control such as censorship and copyright impossible. Participation in the global media village will take place regardless of the participant's class, sex or ethnic identity. It is easy to see how this view of the future would gain favour from pluralists and postmodernists. Okay, now you can see that a lot of this is what is already happening around us. Okay, interesting that some of the things have happened and some of them haven't. We have to think very much about the things like online shopping. Yes, great, but personally I like to go out and I like to go round a shop, and I like to be surprised and find things that maybe I would buy, or a bargain that's there. Same with buying clothes online. Yeah, great fun, but when the clothes arrive and you try them on and they're not exactly right and you've got to send them back, it's a pain. Whereas if you're in the shop, you try them on there, you make the decision, you have the things directly. Okay, so there are issues that go on here, and my big concern reading all of this is the idea that it takes away social interaction so much more. Okay, so you go out shopping, you see other people, maybe you don't see anyone you know, maybe you smile at somebody else, you know, maybe you tell someone that dress looks really nice on you, whatever it may happen to be. That level of interaction disappears if everything just happens through the mass media. So what is that telling us? Is that saying to us we shouldn't be such social beings, we should just stay at home and talk to a computer like I'm doing now? Or should we actually, you know, go out there and interact a bit more? Okay, a more pessimistic view expressed by, for example, Clifford Stoll, more akin to the Marxist approach, sees the information revolution being led by the established forces of capitalism and used for the same ends. Why are we not surprised? New opportunities to reach into households means more opportunities for junk mail in websites, by email, mobile phone, answer phone, and any means possible. In this advertising wasteland, it will be difficult to find anything of use or value. Large technology-based corporations such as Microsoft will be unable to resist the temptation to charge for software and support that is currently free, such as use of browsers, and many small groups will be priced out of the internet market as it becomes as dominated by the conglomerates as any other media. All material that challenges the values of capitalism will then be censored or removed. The prevalence of media technology in the home will mean that social contact outside it becomes minimal, and the main form of community interaction will be between those portrayed in television soap operas and the isolated individuals watching them on the other side of the screen. Okay, so this is now talking about this minimal interaction that worries me somewhat. This is a very negative, pessimistic view of what is going on. You know, and obviously looking at manipulation by the bourgeoisie on everybody else, the capitalist system pushing its ideas onto everyone. And we can see that this hasn't happened to the extent that this is talking about. So hindsight is very useful for us. However, you know how much I love Coronation Street, and I talk about the characters in it and storylines in it. My mum talks to me about characters in soap operas almost as if they are her friends, and in that sense they are, because she sees them every day, and she feels like she interacts with them. I find myself interacting with characters at times, shouting at them or being annoyed with them or whatever else. Okay, so is this a negative thing? The message that's being portrayed could be extremely positive. So again, we have to look at this and consider what is the effect and what is the message that they're trying to put across.